Ji-hyun says he will eliminate all the monsters and asks Sim Jien to keep healing his mother in a safe place. Sim Jien understands his plan and agrees, saying she will continue healing her from the association's underground bunker. Meanwhile, she mentally urges him to fight hard for the sake of his mother. Ji-hyun reflects that these monsters seem familiar, realizing they are the same ones he fought continuously for 5 years inside the Bloodgate. He remembers that, after a certain point, the monsters stopped coming. He thinks that if he can eliminate all of them, he might finally live peacefully with his mother. Suddenly, a bullet strikes his head. When he turns around, he notices it's the army. One of the soldiers remarks that he only eliminated monsters, but another replies that it doesn't matter and says he is the cause of the situation, and we will contain him until hunter support arrives. This surprises Ji-hyun a bit, but he has no time to think as several tanks fire upon him. The attacks impact him hard, and he screams in pain, mentally affected. In that moment of agony, his vision starts to fade, and when he regains it, he is standing in front of a red gate, which has started reacting to his presence. He recalls Sim Jien's warning that being near a blood gate could make it difficult to suppress his transformation into a monster. In that moment, he sees something and remembers suffering from attacks by his tormentors while a blonde boy looked on. The memory shifts, and he recalls a time when that same boy complained, saying Tesu was a bastard and asking why he was always the target. Ji-hyun replied that he was an easy target and added that if things continued this way, the boy would get hurt too, asking him to avoid acknowledging him at school. The blonde boy, annoyed, grabs Ji-hyun by the shirt, questioning if he's crazy. Ji-hyun averts his gaze, saying, "Forget it. Just leave." The blonde boy, frustrated, walks away. Reflecting on this, Ji-hyun recalls that he once thought of the blonde as his childhood friend. At least he had. However, the boy had secretly been gathering evidence of the bullying since he could record everything he saw with his right eye. The blonde sent this evidence to the police, the education office, and news agencies. The day after, Ji-hyun was discovered, and his right eye was taken as punishment. Enraged, Ji-hyun confronted the boy, but the boy said he didn't think they could continue being friends. Ji-hyun realized that Tae-soo was behind the betrayal. The blonde, trembling, begged Ji-hyun to never try anything against Tae-soo. Ji-hyun, devastated, asked what he would do now that he'd lost his ability. The boy assured him that he still had plenty to live for and enthusiastically told Ji-hyun he would be joining the army. The memory fades, and in the present, the blonde's severed head is shown impaled on a bone spear held by Ji-hyun. Ji-hyun screams in grief over what he has done, but there's no time to process his emotions as more monsters attack, prompting him to react and eliminate them. Meanwhile, in the president's office, the president demands, "What is that thing?" His secretary explains that it's the monster who eliminated the Kyum Kong Guild and the Japanese Prime Minister, and that he was the one responsible for the portal collapse. According to their investigation, they need to eliminate him to restore the gates to normal. The president asks why they are fighting each other, and his secretary replies that he doesn't know but emphasizes that, regardless, even other monsters haven't been able to kill him. He adds that the Bloodgate's influence is spreading, and they cannot delay any longer. The president inquires about domestic hunters, but his assistant responds that they've all been annihilated, causing the president to worry. In the end, he orders them to seek help from foreign hunters. Elsewhere, someone asks if the monster that killed so many in Korea and Japan was the one responsible for causing the Bloodgate. He slams his spear into the ground, saying, "This will be interesting." This is Luan Zhuguang, China's top-ranked hunter. In another part of the world, a woman complains about what she sees. She is Vladimir Rozana, Russia's #1 ranked hunter. Lastly, a man with tears in his eyes says he can hear the screams of those who suffer and states that he must go. His assistant comments that if he does, the war will be over. The man, using his powers and destroying everything around him, declares, "It's over." This is Stephen Lucas, America's #1 hunter, and all three are now headed for Korea. For 5 years, Ji-hyun fought endlessly against creatures in the blood dimension, a brutal, otherworldly environment where food and sleep were impossible luxuries, and survival depended solely on combat. The unyielding battles took a toll on his sanity. Each time he lost control, his transformation into a monster advanced. But every time he felt himself slipping away, he'd remember his mother, lying helpless in a vegetative state, and the man responsible for her suffering. That searing rage helped him suppress the monstrous shift within him, even if only temporarily. Yet now, he questions why he is on the verge of losing control. Has his resolve weakened since he achieved his revenge? Or has the blood dimension's magic itself grown more powerful, amplifying the monstrous force within him? He realizes he may not be able to keep his transformation at bay as he once did. In that moment, he resolves that if he can't be free of the blood dimension's influence, he will at least use his powers to eliminate every last creature within the portals. Perhaps then he can atone for the sins he's committed, some innocent lives taken, others transformed irreversibly by his presence. At that moment, a sharp impact shatters his head. His vision fades as he struggles to regenerate, his mind frantically pulling him back to reality. His enemy stands before him, preparing to attack again as Ji-hyun forces himself upright, readying for the next brutal assault. Meanwhile, on Earth it was Christmas, the day the portals appeared. Inside a large church, a priest spoke to his congregation, reminding them of gratitude as the holiday season brought hope and renewal. But the moment of peace shattered when a massive portal materialized above the city. Without hunters, the people were defenseless, left to flee in terror. The priest urged everyone to evacuate, and his assistant begged him to leave with them. But the priest replied firmly, "You go first. I'll follow soon." At that instant, a monster emerged from the portal and locked eyes on the priest. Just as the beast lunged toward him, a blinding light enveloped the church, eliminating the monster in an instant. The stunned priest whispered, "Is this God's will?" This miracle marked the awakening of Stephen Lucas, the world's first SSS rank hero, who would go on to save the entire United States. Ji-hyun had idolized Lucas as a young boy, seeing him as the ultimate hero, a man who defended humanity against all odds. Now, Stephen Lucas, America's #1 hero, had arrived in Korea. But Ji-hyun didn't have long to wonder why he was here. In an instant, Lucas struck Ji-hyun without hesitation, testing his strength against the monstrous figure before him. "So, you don't die easily," Lucas remarked, observing Ji-hyun's regeneration. As Ji-hyun began to heal, Lucas cast a restrictive ability, immobilizing Ji-hyun. Panicking, Ji-hyun felt himself forced toward a red portal, but with a powerful effort, he threw himself out of reach, landing heavily on the ground. Lucas prepared another blow. Desperately, Ji-hyun shouted, "I'm not a creature." Lucas stopped, startled, and asked, "You're human?" With difficulty, Ji-hyun asked Lucas to hear his story. As Ji-hyun recounted the harrowing journey that had led him here, Lucas's expression softened, and he wrapped Ji-hyun in an understanding embrace. "It's been hard, hasn't it?" he said quietly. "What's your name?" "Kong Ji-hyun," he replied. Lucas nodded, explaining that his mission had always been to protect humanity, but that he had taken many lives and bore the weight of those deaths. To atone for this, he tattooed their names onto his body. "I can help you fight these creatures," he offered, but then added gravely, "But know this, these red portals are opening everywhere. Many lives will be lost." Lucas apologized, carving Ji-hyun's name onto his body as well, before whispering, "I'm sorry," and preparing to eliminate Ji-hyun once more. Elsewhere, Sim Jian watched this scene unfold from the Hunter Association as she continued to tend to Ji-hyun's mother, drawing strength from the knowledge that Ji-hyun was still fighting. Meanwhile, in Russia, Vladimir Rozana, the top hunter, scoffed at Lucas's bold choice to go to Korea alone. She thought him reckless, especially given his prowess in the recent war. Her irritation grew when she learned that her army had lost 80% of its strength and could no longer hold the defensive line. "It would be different if I could just capture the Arctic creature," she muttered angrily. Just then, a man entered, his presence commanding attention. "I'll capture it myself," he announced with certainty. It was none other than Tesu, ready to claim his own place in the escalating battle against the Bloodgate's horrors. The Arctic monster, the first of its kind, had been an unparalleled threat, an SSS-class beast capable of unprecedented destruction. It emerged from a portal in the bleak Russian Arctic and, with a single devastating strike, obliterated the entire Russian Arctic base. Unprepared for the reality of magical creatures or the existence of portals, the Russian government scrambled, deploying every conceivable resource to confront the beast. Soldiers, artillery, and airstrikes bombarded the creature, but these conventional weapons merely glanced off it, leaving the monster unscathed. In a final, desperate measure, half of Russia's nuclear arsenal was unleashed, turning the northern territories into a radioactive wasteland. But even the destructive force of nuclear weapons was powerless against a creature infused with mana. Instead, the radioactive fallout transformed northern Russia into a desolate land infested with new monsters, further isolating it. In the wake of this catastrophe, Russia was left weakened, its resources stretched thin, leading to its eventual declaration of war on the United States to claim additional assets. Back in the present, Tesu stands confidently, declaring, "I'll eliminate that Arctic monster myself." Across from him, Vladimir Rozana, Russia's #1 hunter, scoffs, raising an eyebrow at the young hunter's boldness. "A Korean S-rank hunter? And you think you can face it?" Her voice drips with sarcasm as she laughs at his audacity. "Showing up here, without permission. How foolish," she says, crossing her arms. "Do you think an S-rank has what it takes to face the Arctic monster? Or do you have a death wish?" With a smirk, she unleashes her power, her aura radiating fiercely, causing the entire ground around Tesu to tremble and shatter under the sheer force. Yet Tesu remains undeterred. He mocks, "Oh, so you're here for that monster? Funny. Last I heard, you couldn't even stand up to the United States," he taunts, his words sharp and aimed to provoke. Vladimir's smile vanishes as her eyes narrow with cold fury. She questions him, "How do you plan to survive the radiation and reach the Arctic monsters?" Tesu, unbothered, raises a shield, a shimmering field of mana. But she merely laughs, unimpressed. "That shield won't hold up to the kind of radiation we're talking about." Tesu's smirk deepens as he activates layers of additional defensive abilities, coating his body with a series of powerful shields and barriers. Vladimir's gaze sharpens as she watches him. "All right," she finally concedes, "if you somehow manage to kill the Arctic monster, I'll grant you 30% of the mana stone." "Not a penny more," she declares with a cold finality. But Tesu just laughs and walks past her, advancing steadily toward the Arctic wasteland, the glow of his shields illuminating his path. Elsewhere, Stephen Lucas stands face-to-face with Jihyung, who begins to radiate light from within. Lucas's expression softens for a moment. "I'm sorry," he murmurs, "but I have to end this." He attacks Jihyung with a lethal blow, and, in an instant, Jihyung's body disintegrates into dust, carried off by the breeze. Yet within seconds, the dust reforms, taking shape as an eye, then a bone, and finally, his entire body. Jihyung regenerates, looking up to meet Lucas's unyielding gaze. Jihyung, realizing the gap between their powers, feels a flicker of fear. But determination ignites within him as he lunges forward, thrusting a bone spear toward Lucas's face. The sharp edge embeds between Lucas's brows, but Lucas barely reacts, his calm eyes holding Jihyung's as he tightens his embrace. "If hurting me helps ease your heart, do it as much as you need," Lucas murmurs, pulling Jihyung closer. Once again, Jihyung's body turns to dust. And yet, Jihyung regenerates, gritting his teeth in rage. Lucas, observing him carefully, wonders aloud, "Is your regeneration truly limitless?" Then he embraces Jihyung yet again, whispering, "I'll keep eliminating you, painlessly." Jihyung struggles, his body reforming through excruciating pain. Memories of his ability flood back, exoskeleton manifestation, an ability that coats his skin in a hardened skeletal armor, but at an excruciating cost. Each regeneration is agony, every cell in his body searing with pain. He remembers his body breaking and healing again and again for the sake of revenge and hope. But Lucas's ruthless attacks, coming immediately after every regeneration, push him beyond any threshold of pain he has endured. The endless cycle of destruction and regeneration gnaws at his sanity, breaking him down. He recalls a memory from high school when a classmate once asked him what his power was. When Ji-hyun had told him, "Exoskeleton," the boy had recoiled in disgust, muttering curses as he threw Ji-hyun to the ground. Now, enduring this unbearable pain, Ji-hyun wonders, why? Why do I have to suffer like this? What did I do wrong? As he writhes in Lucas's arms, despair floods him, and he admits that Lucas may be right. Perhaps, by continuing to live, he condemns others to death. But then he remembers his mother. Even if I die, she will live, he tells himself. In a final burst of resolve, he begins to absorb energy from the red portals around them. The energy pulses through him, radiating outward as his body begins to glow with intensity. Seeing the change, Lucas prepares to counter. But before he can strike, Ji-hyun clenches his fist, channeling all the accumulated energy from the portal into one powerful blow. Lucas braces himself as the punch connects, the force sending shockwaves that ripple outward, visible even on live broadcasts throughout the city. Crowds gather, watching in stunned silence as the fight plays out on massive screens, Lucas's own son among them, his face pale as he watches his father struggle against the monstrous figure on screen. Inside the Korean Hunter Association building, Sim Jien, overexerted from continuously healing Ji-hyun's mother, collapses to the ground, her strength nearly spent. Her secretary rushes to her side, supporting her as she coughs, but Sim Jien looks up and gasps, the healing, it's finally complete. In a hospital room nearby, Ji-hyun's mother stirs as her eyes flutter open, the haze of her long sleep finally lifting. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the manhwa and want to see more, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for future updates. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.